With me in the studio here in Canberra is the Shadow Disabilities Minister, Senator Mitch Fifield, and also Labor MP Nick Champion. Thank you both for your time this morning.
Good morning.
We'll start with the news poll. That's where we're at. So, Nick Champion, how important is this news poll? How significant is it for your party?
Well, I think Martin O'Shaughnessy basically called it when he said that you can't rely on a strategy of having just opposition, just saying no, and no ideas. And what ideas the Liberal Party does have out there are things like pulling back on the school kids bonus, which is essential for families' budgets, pulling back on pension payments, pulling back on tax cuts that are all part of the carbon tax arrangements or the carbon price arrangements. All of those things are essentially negative, ripping up the national broadband network. They are yet to offer anything positive to the nation. It's just been this barrage of negativity. And I think what's happening is that strategy that Tony Abbott's had is slowly falling apart.
So you think this
under public pressure?
You think this is driven by your positive policies rather than the negative attack on Tony Abbott's character?
Well, look, I don't think there has been a negative attack on Tony Abbott's character. He puts it out there a lot, right? He's very, very negative. He's very, very aggressive. And when someone stands up to him, he sort of falls over with a glass jaw. So we haven't been targeting his character. We've been just standing up to him. And I think that's resonated with the Australian people as well. But I think the fundamentals are that you can't just oppose, say no, 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 and have a lot of negative stuff out there while hiding all your other policies, hiding your industrial relations policy, hiding your policy on the economy.
Mitch Fifield, a laugh from you there?
Oh, a laugh when Nick said that they hadn't been focusing on Tony Abbott or seeking to make him an issue. I mean, I don't think anyone in Australia would believe that for a second. But we do have a positive agenda. Our positive agenda is repealing the carbon tax because that will help Australians with their cost of living pressures. We want to stop the waste, which we've seen under this government. We've got a comprehensive plan to stop the boats. We have a plan for engagement with Asia, which involves a new Colombo plan, which involves lifting to 40% the number of Australians who study a foreign language at school within the next decade. So we have a positive plan.
Why is that not getting through?
Well, it's our job to make sure that it does get through. I think people are very well aware that we do want to repeal the carbon tax, that we will repeal the carbon tax, and people know that that will be a positive for their cost of living pressures. So our message is getting through, but we've got to keep talking about it, and we have to keep focusing on the government and their failures, which are many. The government always complain that we're being constantly negative, but the thing is, it's not being negative to point out when a government is failing. That is the duty of an opposition, and it's not being negative to say that you're going to repeal a bad policy like the carbon tax. That's a positive.
OK, well, let's go to some of the policy, particularly the Asian Century document released yesterday, a very significant document that lays out a whole range of aspirations, one of them that every school in the nation would teach one of 4 key languages: Indonesian, Japanese, Mandarin or Hindi. Nick Champion, how workable is that plan, particularly for some of the most remote schools in the country?
Well, look, it's workable if we have a strong bipartisan consensus about it, and we want to improve our schools. It's been a constant part of our policy making since we came to office. It's certainly been something that's very close to the Prime Minister's heart, and this is just one more part of that overall plan. It's a very important part of that plan, but I know there are schools in my electorate at the moment who are learning Indonesian, learning Japanese. You see it quite often at school. I went to a school assembly the other day and they were talking in Japanese in a working class school in a working class suburb. So it is an achievable plan, and particularly as technology comes on board, and one of the other recommendations is to link schools with schools in Asia, it will become increasingly more viable as time goes on.
Mitch Fifield, it's similar to the Coalition's plan to have every child learn an Asian language, but it doesn't go quite that far.
Well, our plan is a good one, to have 40% of school students studying a foreign language within the decade. Now, most of those will probably be people studying Asian language. That's a good thing. We've also got our Colombo plan, which I mentioned before, a two-way plan where Australians will go and study in the region and people from the region will come and study in Australia. So there are good things, and there are some positive elements in the government's...
Is this suggestion an appropriate one? Will it get bipartisan support? Will it help your policy or your goal of 40%.
Well, look, we're happy to take a look at the details. They haven't really been fleshed out as yet in the white paper, which is, look, we cautiously welcome the white paper, but our concern is that this government does have a track record of not following through. Gonski, not really any follow through. The Defence white paper, not only was it not followed through, but there was a 10% cut in the defence budget, so that's hardly giving effect to that. And then there was a little thing called the Henry Tax Review, which never saw the light of day other than the bastardised version of the mining tax. So our concern is that this government make grand announcements, big documents, but they're not good on the follow-through.
Well, that is criticism that has been made by others in the past 24 hours.
But
just the fact that
it's not justified.
But just the fact that you know, a lot of the stuff in the white paper was fairly obvious, like we need to engage with Asia, or pretty aspirational. There wasn't a lot in there in terms of money allocated on how we're going to achieve these goals.
But white papers aren't about allocating money. That's budgets. White papers are about setting long-term directions for the country. And if you look back in history, the Campbell inquiry into taxation, which was done by John Howard, wasn't fully implemented for about 2 decades. I mean, it takes a long time. These are about long-term plans and about achieving some form of bipartisan consensus. And the great pity is we have the Liberal Party determined to sort of bring everything down. Oh, we'll bring it down to these individual issues rather than concentrating on the big picture. And frankly, that's part of Barnaby Joyce's sort of economic plan for the country, which is to reject Asia, to, you know, go out there and complain about foreign investment, which is actually going to lift incomes in the long term, playing these very short-term, very populist politics. And they did this under Keating. Keating had a big picture plan aimed at Asia. Would have got us started maybe 10 years earlier than when we otherwise have done. They want to bring everything down, nitpick, say no, and it's not a good response for an opposition to have, and the Australian people are cottoning onto it, and you see that in Newspoll.
Mitch Fifield.
Oh, look, I mean, if we can just put to one side this idea that the Labor Party discovered Asia, that Paul Keating discovered Asia, that Julia Gillard has rediscovered it. I mean,
Menzies was happy to say nice things about Menzies.
Let's just put that to one side. But now, just coming back to the issue of languages, this government has reduced funding for the study of foreign languages in Australia. So each of the areas which they've pointed to as being a priority, they've actually been undermining by their policies to date. So, you know, hopefully we'll see a road to Damascus conversion in the form of actual concrete policies. But we've well been focused on Asia. Tony Abbott, for a long time, has been saying that we should have a Jakarta focus rather than a Geneva focus. This government hasn't had a good track record in its relations with our near neighbours. Just think of the live export issue. You know, that did tremendous damage to our relationship with Indonesia. So, look, we cautiously welcome the report, and we hope that the government learns from the lessons of the past, the mistakes that they've made.
OK, stay with us. We've got to take a quick break. We'll be back right after this.
The latest Windows 8 devices, available now at Harvey Norman. Toshiba, leader in innovation, introduces their range of Windows 8 computers starting from just $468. Toshiba Windows 8 laptop powered by Intel Core i3, just $797. Powered by Intel Core i5 processor, this powerful and stylish Toshiba laptop is perfect for everyday use at only $896. Plus, for complete peace of mind, receive 12 months unlimited phone support with every new Windows 8 computer. Only at Harvey Norman.
Go, Harvey, go!
I've worked hard for what I've got.
I'd like to retire feeling safe
And secure.
We just want our investments
To look after the family tomorrow.
So we can focus on today.
if there are opportunities.
To get my investments
Back on track.
I want to know about them.
With the strength of Colonial First State behind you, wherever you stand on investing in super, we have options for you. Get advice on how Colonial First State can help you.
Did you know, at O'Brien, we fix more than just windscreens, chips and glass for cars.
We also fix all the other important glass in your life, around your home or work.
So for O'Brien Fast Glass, call us 24/7.
O'Brien. Oh, hi, my name's Chantel. A friend of mine's just taken out a life insurance policy with you. She said it was easy and didn't take long.
Hi Chantel, I'm Dave. And your friend's right, it won't take long at all to provide a quote over the phone. And you won't need any medical checks either. Could I start with your age and your smoking status, please?
Sure, I'm 36 and a non-smoker.
Great. If you're an Australian resident, you can apply for a life insurance benefit starting from $100,000.
We'd probably need around $250,000 cover to pay off the mortgage and provide for the kids' education.
That's fine, Chantel. I've prepared a quick quote and you can apply for $250,000 cover from just $20 a month. Plus, you get back 10% of the premiums you've paid after the first 12 months.
My friend was right. It's just so easy.
To apply for cover or for a quick quote, call Real now on 1300 303 459 or visit realinsurance.com.au/life.
Change your fluids, new brake pads, you're good.
Great. What's the damage?
It's no cost.
No cost.
Buy any new BMW for October 31 and receive free scheduled servicing for 3 years or 60,000 kilometres, plus manufacturer's rebates across the BMW X5 range.
To those who combine dreams with actions, who don't think of what money can buy, but of what it can do. To those who count experience as part of their wealth. Always learning, always moving. To those who are always finding more, we say, you belong. Diners Club.
Welcome back. We're still joined by our political panel today, Mitch Fifield and Nick Champion. We're going to go to an internal brawl within the Labor Party that's cropped up in South Australia after Penny Wong was placed second on the Senate ticket behind power broker Don Farrell. Nick Champion, in your home state, is that appropriate for such a senior member of the government to be placed second? You were there?
Well, I was at conference, and indeed I was a voter at conference.
Who did you vote for?
I voted for Don, of course. Look, it wasn't a brawl for a start. It was a pre-selection convention. The candidates made speeches, the delegates heard them, and then a majority of delegates voted for Don. Now it's hard to argue. It is hard to argue with democracy, right? And even if you just took the union delegates out and you just had the sub-branch delegates elected by the rank and file of the Labor Party, Don won a majority of those, 55 to 47.
Anthony Albanese is arguing with it, though. He's going to take it to the council on Friday.
With due respect, what Anthony's suggesting is that we should reject the decision of the ALP rank and file in South Australia and run off to Canberra, to the national executive of the Labor Party, and overturn their decision. And I don't think that that's in the spirit of ALP reform. I'm in favour of ALP reform, which is generally about dispersing power in the party, running off to a smaller group of people, and in effect, Labor's elite, and overturning a decision of the duly elected sub-branches and union delegations is a complete outrage.
So you voted for Don Farrell. Is he really the #1 senator in South Australia above Penny Wong, a member of Cabinet?
What happens is, obviously, people bring different things to public office. And what Don brings is 20 years in South Australian politics, in the industrial wing of politics, and I worked with Don in places like John Martin's when they were closing a very big department store in South Australia, 400 people put out of work, and I saw his dedication to working class people then and workers then, and that's that sort of thing that people take into account, not just whether you're in Cabinet, not just whether you're very articulate, and Penny is an excellent senator. No one's trying to take anything away from her, and she's been given a winnable seat. I mean, in essence, we're arguing about 2 winnable seats in the Senate here, so there's no practical effect of this decision, but people take into account, obviously, your record over a period of time.
Mitch Fifield, what do you make of this?
Look, I wanted Nick to just keep talking. Never interrupt an opponent when they're digging.
I'm not digging.
But look, Don Farrell was one of those faceless gentlemen who tore down a duly elected Prime Minister. So he wasn't going to think twice about bumping down and demoting a mere cabinet minister. We've heard from Nick that Penny Wong is no Don Farrell. No one has ever accused the Labor Party of having open.
We'll just let.
No one has ever accused the Labor Party of having open, transparent, and democratic processes. So who knows what was at play at the weekend. But it's peculiar that the Prime Minister hasn't come out to publicly defend a member of her own cabinet, that she hasn't sought to intervene in this matter. You would have thought that the Prime Minister would be standing square with her cabinet colleague, but she's not.
Would that really be appropriate, though? I mean, there's some of the criticism on Labor in the last few years has been that there was too much power at the top. Would that be appropriate for the Prime Minister to intervene?
Well, I think all the evidence is to the contrary. That there's not too much power at the top. It's people like Don Farrell and David Feeney who decide that they'll move a Prime Minister on. These same sort of people decide that they're better than Penny Wong. I mean, Penny Wong is the senior member of the government from South Australia, and yet she's not worthy to be number one on the Senate ticket. And you heard it here first. Nick voted for the winner. Nick, in politics, always make sure you vote for the winner.
I promised you a response.
Well, just Mitch said that I said that Penny was no Don Farrell. Well, Penny wouldn't want to be Don Farrell. They appeal to different traditions in the Labor movement, and we shouldn't see this as some sort of a contest between the two of them necessarily. It's just a reflection of those two traditions. There's a progressive tradition and there's a more traditional labourist tradition, and Don's clearly a representative of that.
Nick Champion, Mitch Fifield, thanks for your time this morning.
Thanks.